麦克风测试，推推踏踏突突，应该不会太大声吧？等一下我可能还要调整一下声音，怕它盖到影片。那现在还有10分钟左右，10分钟左右，它官方会开始直播。这样 ，Hello Tim， 大家晚上好 ，Hello 阿叶大家晚上好。今天就先给各位警告一下，预先打个预防针，今天内容应该会非常之水到炸的那一种。可以预计他应该是不太会讲什么新的东西啊，所以说请不要太过期待今天的节目。我看一下应该还有10分钟，9分钟后会开始，我们再稍等他一下。那，我说明书忘记收。基本上在这个时间点，还愿意经过了前赛季 preseason， 还有第1赛季跟第2赛季的洗礼之后，还愿意相信这些，或是愿意追这第一手情报的朋友们，想必都是非常对 Diablo 这个系列非常有爱的玩家。我调整一下设定哦。OK， 官方这边还有7分半钟直播才会上线。那真的啦，打一下预防针。今天看的人应该也会比预期的少很多啦。我在想，之前的当初第1赛季的时候，我这边这种小台都还曾经有达到同时200人在观看，大家那时候真的是非常重视，也非常关注暗黑的情报，或者说它的后续发展啊。但是现在的这个情况，真的假的？我刷新一下，还是你是退取的？我这边还没开始，我看一下退取看看。差6分钟呢，有差那么快吗？我开退取看看。退取的已经先开始了，不然那我们今天就跟退取的吧。我们今天就跟退取的状况。刚刚那个是 YouTube 的，退取这边确实开始。OK， 那这支先导影片，相信大家应该也看过了。然后阿燕大大那边，游戏王阿燕那边频道那边也有很详细的讲解，就是跟大家讲他的心得，基本上感想差不多。然后这次只能说，本来想大声斥责什么了，但是实在太大了。这一次他们把那个地层设计师应该是这一次主导，真的本来想大声斥责什么，但是真的太大了。那个地层设计师以前就有参与，但是应该不是主导。这一次他的戏份蛮多的，在前导影片很多，所以他应该是主导。然后在预告的时候好像有看到他的名字，所以今天有机会看到他上来为大家讲解。我很期待他穿什么衣服。之前他的衣服 他在推特上，现在就不叫推特，现在叫 X， 他在 X 上找得到没有包那么紧的衣服，真的。Hello， 白给子大家晚上好。我真的是，他们其实很擅长这些美术设计，或是这种情景设计，或者是说这种影片的拍摄，他们驾轻就熟，非常的熟门熟路了。所以说这种东西他们都可以剪接的很漂亮。小雨大大好久不见，晚上好。目前放出来的东西，就是你就知道它就是跟佐顿库勒的这些创造物有关嘛。那前导影片因为已经有中文的翻译了，所以大家可以去看官方的就好，我这边就不多讲什么。这就是你到时候会遇到的激怒，没什么新东西，大概是，但是依照之前的设定，你可以预期它在整个赛季中后期的时候，会把吸血鬼异能或是之前的魔星的一些东西重新再加回来，可以预期这个东西。所以说你在选择 build 的时候，可以先预先往这个地方发展啊。那大家看他有没有透露什么东西。今天的话，如果没有要讲任何跟全新传奇词条有关的事情的话，那今天就真的完全没任何内容，就是非常瞎的状况。他真的，人家是奇怪的魔导师嘛，什么都可以做到。还没提早开，他现在在那个，他现在在放前导影片而已，还没有提早开。Hello， Sirius 大晚上好。没有，目前没有提到任何的资讯，目前只有放出这个通用的跟赛季的特色，就是这个魔动机，也就是所谓的基奴的部分。没错，这次就是要测试，就把它视为是像 Sirius 大家讲的，把它视为是一个测试佣兵系统的强度应该要到什么程度，大概是可以这样子去思考了。哇，真的好大，真的太大。没关系，我就直接在推特上看吧。都还没有讲，目前都还没有讲，但是理论上应该是一样的状况。希望增加的内容一样大，真的。然后这是这次的那个特殊的，他们会说就是送了很多陷阱。我比较在乎的是他这种所谓的陷阱吃的伤害会不会也是像之前的做坏的，像是九头蛇或是暴盾那种地层伤害这样子。因为他在打最后那只尾王的时候，那只尾王会是以需要闪避，理论上需要闪避的方式，就是那些陷阱啊、那些地形会一些不断的有伤害，去让你去走位。理论上是这样啦，可是暗黑这个游戏一直以来的问题就是，你伤害只要够高，一些机制都是笑话。我也猜会被骂。他那个东西难度太低，又没有识别度，不好玩；难度太高又没有差别。我只能说这一季它这种设定啊，我不会用德鲁伊来拓荒，因为德鲁伊位移技太少了。其实真的非常不爽，很像是那种付费游戏或是那种氪金游戏，有没有？真的远程之夜会比较吃香。这季我绝对不会用德鲁伊拓荒。但是我之后还是会练一次德鲁伊，就是本频道的传统优良传统，就是德鲁伊，一定会做一次德鲁伊，而且每一季一定会想办法生出一个 build 的介绍，这样子，希望可以做到。 我们这边跟推特的进度啊，如果 YouTube 或是其他地方速度比较快一点点的，那请大家算了，这个我猜应该也没什么雷好爆了，应该没差，我猜应该没雷可以爆。这次有雷可以爆的话，我就要笑了。预先打预防针。
These reset each week when a new gauntlet appears. There are solo leaderboards for each class, as well as party leaderboards that vary with party size. And of course, there are a set of leaderboards just for
S2 电法算不算远程哦？其实好像真的不算诶。挑战历程会在2个礼拜，他说2-3个礼拜后放出来，他不会一开始就直接上。这样也好啦，这样子就不会让大家就是拼命的想去弄吧。我觉得这样是好事欸，我觉得他往后压是好事，应该要开始了，本片要开始了，然后我也需要调整一下声音啊。那我的讲话声音如果太小声，请大家马上回馈给我。
Hello Diablo community, welcome to another Diablo 4 developer update live stream.
那个杀人魔是不是被 fire 了？他是那个大家知道的，常见都是他，他是那个社群的 leader。然后还有这次的 leader 设计师是中间这位。然后为什么他的职位是 Quest 啊？左边那位 James，Madeline James。哦，还有它包含了任务的 designer， 任务跟游戏的 designer， 所以我期待的那一位没有上来，那一位 Pina 没有上来，对，任务 Quest 任务设计师。
And so now we have 2 different one in Irvine and one in Albany, and we actually have another guest that will be joining us today.
哦，今天还有一个额外的客人。
Live streams. That's Mr. Adam Jackson. He is live from the Irvine studio. Hi, Adam. Good to see you. And we'll be
这个他在远端跟他们连线。
Balance and classes and everything.
对啊，刚刚那个是 Michelle Pina 今天没有出现。
But we have a lot to talk about. You know, a lot with season 3. We announced it earlier this week.
今天会讲很多Season 3有关的东西，他们在这个礼拜早起已经放出来了。
But we did want to talk a little bit before we jump into season 3 and
在我们讨论之前
talk a little bit about the new year and obviously going through the holiday and
他们要先讨论
season of blood
Season 2的 recap 靠背
fight Lord Zir jump into different blood harvests and everything and what was awesome
要讨论新年怎样
season of blood was or season of blood is that we ended up getting really great feedback from players how they enjoyed
一样是大的，可以给过。
Just hearing that feedback has helped us a whole lot in terms
Hello.
of how we're
晚上好，晚上好。
especially in future seasons. And
另外一站大大
that we introduced was the boss ladder. With of course Uber Duriel being part of it.
Yep. 我听一下。
It was a good opportunity for players to kind of target farm Uber uniques, which was really great. And we got to see a lot of players actually obtain Uber uniques this season. And I will say, we plan on having the boss ladder again for season 3, with some tweaks, which we'll talk about here shortly.
他们刚刚的意思就是说，他们认为 Season 2有Duriel这样子可以有一个目标可以弄，好像是一个不错的选择，所以当然在 Season 3会回国 ，Season 3会回国这个设定，就是有一个目标，有一些。没错，我现在是。即时翻译的状态，不要再踩点，真的。现在他们在回顾整个 Season 2的一些做的一些，总之就是这一个垃圾符文在 Season 3不会出现，屠宰场这个东西。
Next iterations or growth from what we've learned with that endgame feature with Abattoir Zir. So thanks again to the community for all the great feedback.
然后感谢大家的回馈，大家就觉得这是垃圾设定。
Our first holiday event.
然后现在在回顾。
Where players got to actually collect
我其实只换了一个法杖，我换了一个法杖我就再也没弄了。笑死。总之刚刚前面后来加入的朋友们讲一下，他第二，他们觉得像是第二季
And based off of a lot of great feedback we got, you'll be seeing that feedback applied to some of these future events.
等下我现在听一下。
And of course, at the end of the year, we ended up going over kind of all the
对，
big stats.
不会有血之类，而且也不会再，至少这一季不会再有类似的东西，这样子让你留，
Diablo
让你弄。
to
然后这是上一季的回顾。
slay demons with us in Sanctuary, and a lot of people have died as well.
他们想说他们有听回馈啦，然后像那种可以弄一些 skin 的方向，他们也觉得很好，但是他们会去调整细节，就是一种比较公关的说法。这样。然后这是我们这整个上一年，就是这半年来开服以来的，应该不是第二赛季而已。总之就是一些数据的部分，我看一下右下角。
Necromancer is a fan favorite. Has always been a fan favorite with D2 and D3. I actually, funny
真的，他如果从一开始就有的话，大家不会那么反感。就塞到最后，已经什么都没有情况下去弄起来，弄超久。
The team makes fun of me. I play Swork every single season. That's my favorite.
I played Swork last season too, so I don't blame you.
Well, I've been meaning to play Druid, so I might do that.
There we
Buck the
go.
trend there.
中间这位也是登录1玩家。
Feeling Necromancer in season 3, so
感谢冰丝猫鹏鹏大大的订阅，感谢 Jaja 大大的
So it
订
was
阅。
great to see all the numbers and all the stats from Diablo 4. But today we are here to talk about season 3. Season of the Construct.
终于开始了，我们的魔动机赛季。
Dan, do you want to give us a quick little rundown?
Sure, yeah. So, Season of the Construct is packed with a lot of content, and so
它有很大的
there's a lot of things we're going to cover coming
内容
up. I mean,
真的假的？
the first thing we're going to talk about is our all-new quest line that delves beneath the sands of Kyrgyzstan. Nothing good happens beneath the sands of Kyrgyzstan, so that's where we're headed. And
就没有什么好事在
in addition to
卡基斯坦。
that, as you've seen
跟他的
from a lot
battle
of
一样。
the promotional materials, we are now introducing a seasonal companion called the Seneschal Construct, and that is something that you can upgrade and really kind of round out your builds in new ways. In addition to that, we have a couple of new repeatable activities. The first is the Vaults, which is an all-new dungeon type. And the second is Arcane Tremors, which is a new
就是
overworld activity.
我们有宝库，有 Vault， 有宝库，这是全新的地层模式。
Free package is the Gauntlet and leaderboards, and those are coming pretty soon.
然后还有那些排行榜那些东西会加进来，
We'll give you a bit of a tease right now, I think.
这都是讲过的东西。
So I know a ton of stuff for season 3. This is most definitely the biggest season yet for Diablo 4, with a lot of content. And as you mentioned, questline and story being the first thing that we wanted to dive into. Madeline, I think this is a good opportunity to talk
然后有全新的任务，
for the questline for
算
So as Dan mentioned, we have a new
任务
quest
线
line
可以
for,
走。
for season 3. In it, you are going to
真的。
assist the mage Ayujan to purge the demon Malphus from these
然后就是要
cool.
找他去触发这整个任务，然后在卡基斯坦。
turn them into his own little kingdom, and it's turned the hazards and the
他为什么讲话是这样
constructs
咬？
inside of them.
他怎么了？为什么要这样
against
咬
their makers. I think a good question to start with is kind of why constructs. It's a little bit of a departure from seasons past.
他
Season 1
认为
dealt with
Season
malignancy and Season 2 dealt with vampires, both stemming from Lilith's influence. But Sanctuary is such a big place, and so many different stories and lore. Where at present day Sanctuary is
太有
in the
朋克
Dark
力。
Ages. We've had, thousands of years of different technology and magic, and this is one of those stories. We spent a lot of time discussing as a team what we even wanted to do for.
他认为1、2季的任务的剧情跟莉莉丝比较有关啊，这一季跟莉莉丝没什么关系。 就是有之前讲过那只 Morpheus 那一只是 Diablo 的下属。
And the mage clans, for people that don't know, were these ancient mage
然后
societies
整个圣修亚瑞是非常有好几千年的历史的，所以本来就有很多东西。
in certain levels of magic, and we love the Visurai. They're typically the bad guys, typically delve into demotic magic, even though they're not, traditionally evil per se. And Visurai created constructs. They took machinery and their demonic magic and made these soldiers.
总之讲他的世界观，这个东西，这个魔动机它并不是完全的邪恶的东西，它然后它也不是纯粹的魔法，它是魔法结合机械，就是一些故事背景观的设定啊。然后是佐顿克勒弄出来的这个东西，大家如果有玩过3代的话，也会知道，它本身也不是完全的。反派的角色，他有点介于，就是他只是立场跟你不一样，然后做法比较极端，然后就被碾过去的角色。
Yes, Zoltan was one of the original Haradrim. Good old Uncle Tyrael gave him the original Soul Stones. It's like, hey, I trust you, take care of them.
跟达尔一样，达尔应该没有被碾过去吧
？What if I made these better? So he created his
真的
which was his own.
他其实原本已经死了吧？他只是把他的复活的可能性给砍断的状态。
You gotta get out. So they killed him.
对啊，他在这边就讲了，他这边讲说玩家们不喜欢他做的事情，所以把他干掉。
Zoltan and Ayajan knew each other in their youth and became business partners and eventually friends. And they shared this vision of if we can create our own constructs and create this alternate power source that's not using demonic magic.
哦，他不会死透是不是
？These constructs.
然后这个就是他留下来的那个织法机，他的遗产之一。
Unfortunately, it didn't go as expected. It couldn't just get it right. And Zoltan was just like,
没办法，跟他预期的不一样。
I'm going to move on to bigger and greater things. This is a failure. Let's move on. And Ayajan was like, no, we have something here. Let's keep going. And unfortunately, that created a rift in their friendship. And that rift allowed Malphus to
讲得太好了吧？总之，他说那个东西好像是被佐顿库勒放弃的东西，然后被他的另外一个算是徒弟吗？弟子给继续做了，然后后来被墨菲斯这个恶魔，就是他是 Diablo 的下属。
Like I said before, we took inspiration from Sin War.
他为什么会是咬啊？在咬什么？然后说，恶魔其实有很多种不同的恶魔。
Like this stone liquid mass with a mouth on top. And so the original Malphus was like this red mist, and that allowed him to kind of sneak into corners that he wasn't supposed to.
顿了一下。
Malphus is a named demon, and he's one of terror, but he's very unimportant in the hierarchy of hell.
他说墨菲斯以前没有一个定型，所以他可以钻到任何想钻的角落里面。
So when he found the opportunity to sneak in the sanctuary and corrupt the vaults, he's like,
冲进了圣修亚瑞之后，
my kingdom, I'm gonna rule it. And he did that
他想要，这是他的王国，这是他的领地，他想要征服圣修亚瑞。
Prideful, he's like, I'd like to sneak out and leave the vault.
Yeah, he's not satisfied with the vaults. He now wants to start trying to tank out.
然后他在那个宝库里面，在 vault 里面，所以他不能只满足在宝库里面，他想要扩张到整个圣修亚瑞的世界里面。记得哦，这是在黎明干爆全世界之后，居然还有恶魔敢出来浪。黎明干爆全世界还不超过50年。
But they hire you and they're like, hey, something's going on, something up north. Please figure it out for us. And so you find the first vault and you delve into it to try and get a sense of what's going on.
然后这边进到从那个裂缝进到那个宝库里面，然后开始你的探索，打这些魔动机。
And find your own construct. You start finding pieces of it. You're traveling through, and eventually you're going to find Ayajan, who is in a less perfect and ideal situation under Malphus's influence. You eventually free him. He's like, thank you so much. I don't even know what's going on, but let's figure this out together. And he fixes the seneschal construct for you. He's like, you're probably going to need this as we.
总之我们救了他，他就送我们一只基奴。
Yeah, and here we're seeing like
yeah, 你就有基奴了。
kind of creating your own seneschal construct, yeah.
就像以往一样，你的赛季基本上就是绑一个小剧情啊，只是这次剧情跟莉莉丝无
So
关。
Malthus is our first stationary boss. He uses the environment.
那中间这只就是可以看到那只，刚刚那只恶魔钻进了佐顿库勒的遗产里面，
There are different
控制了这个
elements in the
没办法走的东西，
that are going to appear out of this image.
还蛮白痴的。居然他到底要怎么去征服世界，我真的不
For
懂，
this fight, he is
根本走不出去啊。
possessed the largest construct. He could find the Guardian to fight you. And the loons in the
这只
background.
他们宣称啊，这只 Morpheus 它的特色就是它会在地图中间它不会动，然后它会有很多，
It's the vault itself, and the vault is now coming alive to
Yeah.
try and kill.
When
就
you
说哦，
delve
它
into
就是
the vaults, it's definitely going through
代表了
the
这整个宝库，所以整个宝库像是
definitely wants you
活
out.
起来一
Doesn't
样。
want you in there. He's going to do he'd throw everything in the kitchen.
他要先踏出第一步啊！
We also have footage
征服世界的第一步是他要先踏出
of our
第一
new
步。
season now, the gate hall. This is kind of the gateway between the vaults and the upper world. You're going to go through the quest line, and then
现在
it's going to
展示这个位置就是整个 vault 的大门，整个宝库的大门，从这里会连接到原本的世界，不是它不是从那个裂缝进去。然后这边你可以看到它有一些像是城镇一样的地方，有一些这些基础的 NPC 可以在这边准备你的装备，然后进入整个宝库以后，然后就可以选择它有不同的 gateway， 它有 Vault of Stone， 然后石之宝库，然后墨水之宝库 Vault of Ink， 然后 Vault of Room，
all your vendors will be here. It'll be easy access to the vaults and everything. So
The
we're gonna
room.
have the new hub specifically for season 3. So yeah, sounds
Very
really
就是从那个大厅可以进到不同的宝库里
the
面
quest。line and story for season 3. Obviously, we talked about seneschal constructs and how that's actually going to be a big part of the storyline. People have been talking about it all this week with, seeing the footage of like, wow, it looks like we have these little companions with us now for season 3. So, Dan, can you talk us a little bit about, what seneschal constructs will be
Yeah,
for players?
so the seneschal construct is a seasonal companion. And the seasonal companion is kind of the embodiment of your power chase for the season. So every season we try to develop a new type of power chase, and power is really important to our players.
每个
Obviously, this is a game about
赛季都希望能够
killing lots of demons, and we're always trying to find new ways to do that. So we really wanted to stretch ourselves this season and find a way that players hadn't seen before.
他想要创造一些新的一些特效啦，但是然后希望是没看过的。
The seneschal is this little construct, maybe not so little, but it follows you around, and it has different
那
skills and abilities.
这次的就是跟激怒有关的那个东西，
You can pet your
这个东西已经
construct.
在蓝帖上放出来了，有中文翻译的，大家有兴趣可以去看，去想一下。
Absolutely.
Important.
我自己是觉得
And so you can have
对
two skills on your seneschal construct. Those are given to the construct using what is called a governing stone. And governing stones are these semi-precious stones that you can find
那你有两
throughout your
个
adventures in
控制
season
石，
3.
可以让它
They
启动
drop in
两
a
个
lot of
技
those
能，
repeatable activities I mentioned, which we'll cover soon. And
这些都是目前为止都
lots
是
of different types, I
已
think
经
there's
放过
about
的情
12
报。
that you can slot in. We weren't satisfied with that though, because okay, 12 skills, it's cool. Don't get me wrong, but we wanted to allow players really to modify those skills however they saw fit. And so we've also developed 27 different tuning stones, another type of stone that you can slot in then to modify that skill.
就是
And so
有
you've
12
got those two
种
governing stones, and then each governing stone
大颗的
has
技能石
three
跟
different
27
tuning
种
stones that
小
can
石头
modify it
可以去
and just create
改一些，
really wild combinations of powers.
然
that
后
allow
这
players
些东西
to
跟你的
experiment.
之前专辑特效一样，它可以互相
And
叠
so
加或是
kind of
互
with
相
that
影
breadth
响。
of powers, then you've got a lot of different options.
那你就有可能可以组合出一些
kind of round out your build.
可能很有趣，或是跟你的 build 有
new
关的，
types of
或是创造出一些全新的
So that's very cool. Sounds
全新的
really
方
good.
向。
And I think we might actually have
I
some
think we
examples.
do.
我想要看的是演
Like,
示，你知道吗？
what some of
我不
these
想看他这样
Let me tell
子
you
空
what's
口在
going on
讲。
here. So
有
we
了
brought up our construct
所以看到
menu.
它有分成近战，有分
And
成
this is
远
in the
距，有分成
inventory
它有一些分类
UI,
嘛
but。it's its own separate UI, so your construct is not going to take up your traditional inventory space.
我其实比较在乎的是它到底怎么跟
governing stones equipped.
原本的角色联动这件事情，而不是那个东西到底多强
The other one is called lightning bolt, and you can see it shooting some lightning bolts. Like I said,
但是
two skills, not too bad. You're killing.
对我来说，它不管是射电球还是射光线。
So, in addition to being able just to
跟我们的玩法没有什么关系吧？
from activities, you can also
对啊
craft stones. And so we've gone to our gate hall here, and we're crafting a new
但我在乎就是这
stone.
个而
We'll
已
see what we get. In this case, it's a
然后
puzzle stone, a governing stone.
它做出来
I
嘛，
already have that skill, so
那原本已经有
it's
了
just going to count towards XP,
然后
towards
它就可以给它经验值，所以每一个石头最多是10等，现在看到都是5等到4等左右。
So we've got focus fire. And I think the first thing we're going to add is voluminous support. Fancy way of saying that it's going to increase the area of effect for your attacks. We're also going to add electrocution. Now, even though focus fire is a fire attack, electrocution is going to add some lightning.
就是像是上一场那样子，比如说我德鲁伊原本毒减伤很难上，某些 build 很难上毒减伤，就可以靠它上毒之类的，是这个意思吗？
We're going to add arcing support. And arcing support's really cool.
然后那个电弧的 support，
abilities to chain.
它有些是可以让你的技能直接有改变。我看到没看到改变哪里 ？Modified。
All right, so here now.
所以它的现在有一个 arc， 它的原本那个 fire 应该是打1只还2只而已，然后现在可以变成复数效果。像这样子。
multi-shot in that arcing support. Now it can just blast through enemies. So yeah, it's
那是多了昏迷是不是？
Yeah,
刚没有
we're
看清
kind
楚
of。seeing some examples of what players can potentially do with their seneschal constructs and actually make adjustments and modify them to kind of suit your specific playstyle.
它一定不可能
Big question is like
不可能只靠魔像打输出或打高层啊，
maybe
一定不可能。
status effects or things like that. Like, can you potentially add in a tuning
但是
stone that
这种程度的配合哦，
yes, absolutely. So again, we wanted to give all of you a lot of different options to play with. We want
他希望给你很多很多的选项，给你们有很多的选择。 可以去
Some of
玩。
the examples we showed were more damage dealing, where the seneschal is doing the damage. But then we also want to give players the ability to just kind of
我现在大胆猜测啦，
for you to go in and you know.
对，他会吃角色能力值，他会继承一定你角色能力值。可是我想知道是怎么互动，你知道吗？
Can make things vulnerable, delete things, electrocute them. Chill them. I mean, the list goes on. I mean, pretty much any of the, the verbs in the game.
So your possibilities are massive with what you can do with your seneschal. And one thing, this is actually something that
被动效果其实很
was in
多，
the
而且
video,
非常强。
our Dev Insights video before the actual start of the stream pointed out yesterday on social media to players that were asking a little bit more or for more clarity on some items. But the seneschal construct actually does scale 1-to-1 with like specific like secondary type of stats or even or things that are associated with your actual character. So things like attack rating.
这边讲说，就是你的角色跟他其实是有一些能力上的联动。
Feel as if it was an extension of you if you wanted to be that. Also, we really didn't want to get, a seneschal that was just outclassed when you got the level 100, because then where's the fun, right? So, yes, absolutely, the seneschal will become more powerful as you become more powerful.
Awesome. Yeah, so seneschal constructs obviously playing a huge role, and with the construct,
他就只有讲说他会因为你的角色能力值变高，所以这个基努会变强。目前就讲起来就是这样。
The season 3 season of the construct, and one of them is vaults, which I know we.
那好吧，现在刚没有什么想听到的东西，相信大家也没听到。这边就讲跟 dungeon 跟 vault 差在哪里。
Like I said before, they are these extensions.
伤害 bug 吗？
And because of that, he has turned the hazards inside of them into enemies in and of themselves. We wanted to explore the fantasy of a environment that was hostile and it was ready to kill you often, and so they're filled with hazards that spinning fires of death, floor plates that come alive, arrows that shoot out of the walls, and with our construct enemies. I think we have some footage of the vaults as well to kind of walk you through it.
这个现在就是
Yeah, constructs in them.
他刚描述说会出现什么东西啦。
Because they're so hostile and dangerous, we wanted them to have a good be lucrative and be risk reward. So we have a lot of different loot. I think a little bit later.
它还会有不一样的调宝。
Gold, and that's just going to.
但目前听起来它的重点就是多了这一些，多了这一些陷阱类的，就是看得到的陷阱类的东西。就是这一次的。
The dungeon designers wanted to explore a little bit of a. I'm not sure what I'm going to be experiencing. I have to go find my objective, and so the objectives are vague a little bit on purpose, but typically vaults end in this what we call
那他们
the death room.
定义的宝库就是 vault 是宝库嘛，定义的宝库就是单纯的有陷阱跟很多宝箱吧。目前看起来。 就是前面显示的是dungeon，就是一般地层的状况，dungeon一般地层的状况，然后这边就是可以看到宝库的状况，它里面就有很多宝箱可以让你开，也有很多的陷阱，很多这种地形的陷阱，怪可能数量会少一点点。
Yeah, and obviously with vaults like like. Tons of traps here. I know that there's.
它就会有一些是有怪的地方，有些是大量陷阱的地方，这样交错。
Yes, absolutely. So certainly.
我猜也是因为这样子，所以才让这次才开放电脑可以使用 WASD。它重新定义，它不是升华，就是它就是定义这东西叫做宝库，这个东西不是地层，是宝库。然后它也希望玩家有城里面有很多的收获，或是可以拿到东西，所以里面会有。 理论上会有很大量的 chest， 会有很大量的宝箱。理论上应该会这样。
And that's called Zoltan's Warding. So as you enter Vault, after you've cleared some of Malphas's influence out of the vault, you can find the statue of Zoltan Kulle because, of course, Zoltan Kulle.
He has to have a statue.
He's got to have a statue in every vault. I mean, that's just how.
然后每一个 vault 里面也会有一个雕像。
You're able to find a special called Pearl of Warding. You can
对啊，我就说你一定要玩
in return, the statue is going to
有强
grant you Zoltan's
有很
This is a buff. It doesn't really help your combat too much, but what it does is it gives you additional rewards, and you can see right there. There's
这个就是前面前导影片有讲过的，他刚刚讲的就是那些陷阱其实跟你的一开始吃到的 buff 有关，每踩到一个陷阱，你就会掉一层 buff， 最后有 buff 的情况下就可以去开一定程度的宝箱，真的。现在就看。
And so the gameplay really becomes
他们就更在乎微操，所以他才会把电脑版开了 WASD 的操作。
Through the vaults, in addition to fighting the enemies in order to get the highest payout.
And I you know, if you make like mistakes, like I know I will make mistakes.
Yes,
like
I will too.
那如果玩家失误了怎么办
I'm a person that gets by like every single trap under the sun. Are there ways of being able to like help mitigate like some of those types of mistakes?
You can have multiple stacks of buffs. So you know. One pearl is.
你会有很多层的 buff， 所以你
you want to go grind the overworld activity to get the pearls. Like, okay, I have a bunch of stacks. I have a really.
你可以失误很多次。
And if you don't.
没错，要凭照做。
Make it, and you no stacks left. There were 2 chests at the end. You still always get a.
然后，就算你完全把 buff 全都失误到底，它还是有另外一个宝箱可以开，就是你只能少开一个宝箱，你看不到宝箱可以开。
Yes.
And you can
选择路线，目前看起来有3种宝库啦，我不知道是不是跟这个有关。就是现在的直播里面没有看到路线相关的事情。但是它有3种宝库没有错。
And like I guess with the pearls and overworld activity, I know that has like to earn those types of buffs. Like how do players actually end up?
Right. So that's our second repeatable activity that I'd mentioned, which is the Arcane Tremors.
Arcane Tremors.
Arcane Tremors is a new type of overworld activity that's really localized around the entrances of the vault. So remember how we were talking about Malphas, and Malphas's sights have become grander now that he controls all the vaults. And so all the constructs are starting to spill out into Sanctuary and cause trouble. Additionally, some new types of hazards have unearthed and are starting to appear around the vaults. And so it's your job to every so often go in and beat back, you know, all these construct invasions or incursions, essentially.
它不是只有在卡基斯坦而已，它是整个地图都有这些东西。
Talk a little bit about this activity. We can
然后你要去
video for that too.
你要去触发它。
And so here you've arrived and you see
你到那边了之后，你会
band of constructs and obviously
就是他会跟你讲那个地方有这些叫什么魔动机，有魔动机可以去找它讨它，然后他刚说这个跟地层有关，我刚没有听得很清楚。
Need to do within this activity. What you're looking to do to really advance the activity is look for these cores that you can use to draw out Malphas's most powerful lieutenants. And so you're getting a core here from an obelisk, which is an overworld hazard, and you've got to make sure to not get hit by that. And if you collect enough cores, you're able to deposit them in a brazier, which you can see on screen here glowing. And the brazier is a signal that you are now challenging one of the heralds of Malphas. And the herald of Malphas you see appearing right there. You and hopefully a bunch of other of your friends will, gang up and
就是你要到各地去开那个东西，当你开到一定程度之后，它就可以跑出这个 Malphas 的幻影之类的东西。
Awesome. Yeah, and I know like this being an
然后这个东西就它打掉之后，它就会有比较好的礼物，它也本身也不好打掉。躲陷阱，躲陷阱你才有宝箱哦。这个你感觉上你可以把它视为就是整个地图的血验吗？
The activities on the overworld for this season, you have opportunities of actually being able to get rewards kind of all over the place.
Yeah, our intention is for season 1 you kind of stayed in tunnels, and then season 2 you kind of stayed in the overworld most of the time. We didn't want to make the players feel
对，大概就是这样。对，他就说 Season 1是 Season 1你在隧道里面 ，Season 2你在血验区里面，所以。整个 Season 3就是全地图的血验的状态，你就是到处去找那东西去打，然后打了之后，达到一定的量，它就会出那只小王可以打。
Is additional to just going through vaults as well. So
yep, the vaults are fully dungeons in that respect, and so we have the ability and have made nightmare versions of all of these dungeons. And the nightmare versions of the dungeons obviously have more difficult combat. But they also have a lot more rewards. So those chests we had talked about before, the ward-woven chests, you actually get more of those as you advance in the nightmare system. So then your vault runs become even more.
所以在也有所谓的噩梦宝库。
Like how would you access something like that specifically?
Right. So we're going to use the Nightmare Dungeon Sigil system, but we've created a way that the game can now award unique seasonal sigils, and in this case, they're called vault sigils. And so we did that because
它一样用噩梦地层的分级制度，应用到宝库里。再讲三小。
Very cool.
Awesome. One last dungeon, the Mega Uber dungeon. It's kind of it's very large. It's the best features of all the other vaults put into one, and that is where Malphas lives. And so you will be quest line, you'll defeat him.
它应该是打宝库可以拿到。进 Malphas 那个宝库的钥匙，就是你最后还是要去打 Malphas。
And he kind of sits parallel to the current boss ladder, so you don't need to do him for the boss ladder, but it's certainly going to be a bonus for you if you do.
Awesome. So yeah, way more additional content in this season. And we have a lot of different ways of being able to play and take your character.
有很多种全新的玩法，很多种新的战斗，没有吧？
You can do nightmare variations of the vaults.
噩梦地层还是要浓
vaults now.
对，噩梦地层还是雕这个 vault 跟雕纹没有关系的样子，理论上还是要去噩梦地层浓雕纹。
as well. And this is just a little bit of what we have for season 3 with, of course, we have Seneschal.
而且它有所谓的噩梦等级的宝库，比较难的宝库，然后所以会有比较好的宝库。
And I will caveat.
听得好头痛。
We mentioned this in the blog earlier this week. So the Gauntlet and leaderboard are actually not going to launch at the start of this season.
不要重练吗？这个这一季应该是没机会吧？重练应该是势在必得。对啊，新装备还没讲。那这边要先讲我们的排行榜，还有那个。
leaderboards really soon. But Dan, I know wants to
这个就是暗黑3的那个嘛，暗黑3不是有一个就是每周打了会有奖励的那个东西吗？基本上就是那个东西啊。
Saw a taste at BlizzCon of what the Gauntlet and the Trials leaderboards are going to be.
对，挑战地层，挑战地
So
层。
we go in a bit more depth here, and hopefully start to answer some of your
那
questions.
就换个名字这样子，然后
So the Gauntlet is another new dungeon type.
他又说这是一个新的地层 type，
something that unlocks with the overall
他们
leaderboard feature.
没有搞懂什么叫做新的东西。
And basically, that means that it's targeting more of your in-game players at this point.
然后他就是说，也是给那些完全 end game 的玩家去玩的。
They're starting to really round it out.
新的坐牢
become more powerful, and now they want to prove their might, not just to themselves, but obviously to show off and have bragging rights.
反正他们自己也讲，就是让你去 show off， 让你去炫耀的，
itself
会让你拿到一些
is kind of based
头像的那个
around
边框啊，
three
还是什么的。
The first is that it is fixed seed. The second is that it is non-linear.
真的。
And thirdly, like I said, it's there to prove your might.
可是这个东西都是3代都就有的东西啊，不算是新的东西，也都是早就有的设定。
To be as fair as possible for everyone.
那他说他希望把一些设计可以设计的比较有比较平衡啊，比较公平。我靠，鹏鹏大大也太狂了吧。
level playing field at this point, and let me tell you, that was kind of hard to do. Our game is not very good at doing one thing. It loves to do random things, but in this case, we felt competition demanded that it be fair.
Yeah.
终于讲到，他们目前没有讲到职业的平衡，但是他们
dungeon where you travel from the beginning to the end. It's not about trying to get to the end as quickly as possible. It's about the choices you make while you're within that dungeon. And so the layout basically allows you to develop all manner of strategies. I mean, when we had people testing the dungeons, the gauntlets, there would be arguments over.
他们现在的意思是说，他们希望，因为这个挑战地层它是内容是一样的嘛，他们想要
a lot of it is trying to figure out your way through the dungeon each week.
借由一些配置，让它可以让所有职业打起来都有
killing enemies,
不错的体验。
gathering what we're calling proofs of might,
这个方向错了
trying
吧
to get the highest score possible. So it's not about just going fast. Certainly going fast helps, but it's really about how effective and efficient are you at combat. And that's going to be reflected in your score.
你不能只是快，你还要讲求效率。
A score.
在讲什么？
And you're going to say, okay,
等一下，我以
can I
为
do better than that? And we're going to say,
不会有比那个大胡子更语无伦次的人呢。这个人目前我听到下来真的是语无伦次到不行。
Yeah.
But let's circle back on strategies a little bit. And I think we've got a little bit of video to help with that. So here's the
他这么
gauntlet.
说，他有策略可以选择。 所以这是有路线的吗？
Looks like a normal dungeon. But again, it's World Tier 4. It's targeting level 100 players. So we're going to throw a dungeon boss at you right at the start.
Yeah, and I will note, like, I know
他的意思是说
technically you can do Gauntlet before level 100. It's just more.
我觉得看的人已经很多了，而且像这种已经预计会很水内容，我们这边都还有将近60个人在陪我们在看，感谢大家这么的。
And so here, you're fighting,
对于这个游戏这么的有信心。
Powerful, but you're more powerful. In that case, you defeated him. Now, the cool thing about defeating that boss is it doesn't drop loot; it drops a shrine.
他听起来有策略，可是他没有讲到选择路线啊。等一下，我自己听一下。
There's other types of new shrines within the Gauntlet too. We just hit previously here a pillar of proving. And that's a shrine that actually respawns all the enemies around you.
没有，这个没有陷阱，这个是挑战地层，这个应该没有陷阱的问题。
So we've got the pillar of proving,
来看笑话。
pillar of glory, which is a way to basically get a.
没有，你看这次还是有王啊。
And we've even got chests scattered all throughout the dungeon that you can earn keys for, and you see keys up in the corner on the HUD there. And those keys give you even additional score. So a lot of the
然后你捡到边缘的宝箱，会有一些钥匙，它会给你额外的分数。所以它不只是打过，它有一些方法可以增加分数。
and get the highest score possible.
这样子
And,，you know,
他这
something
边
we saw in the footage,
他的意思就是说
obviously, first thing you ran
只是
into
快
was like a tomb lord.
分数不一定会高啦，他就是这个
And
意
so
思啊。
you could technically
讲述就是这样。
take that tomb lord
Yes.
further into the dungeon if you want to.
Yeah.
You're not
because-
stuck in the room with
Yeah,
them.
you're not stuck in the room.
You can draw that tomb lord right.
对对对，他的意思就是说，你可以
combo
你可以不打那只王，有王那只王不是必定要打，
Exactly, and so
你
that's
可
the
以
thing, I think,
选择
with-
不打那只王
with
往下
Pohan, like,
走。
we're gonna start to see
你
some
可以
really
想一些方法，
interesting things weekly.
遇到不好打的怪，你就可以
And
跳过，它不是一定要打
we're gonna
死
see players，
它就是这个意
kind
思
of create different combinations.
它不是选择路线
What's the best way of
它比较像是当初的
optimizing the best
大秘吧
score possible? You know,
它应该比较像是
taking
当初的大秘，
advantage
你有
of the past,
你
taking advantage of
不是
like,
强迫你
should I
一定要
drag a
打
bunch of enemies over here just because
就是或是你可以直接拖一大堆
I have
怪去
stuff like
一直
that.
杀这样
It's
子
gonna。actually be really interesting to see, and I think it adds even more complexity to the idea once you start adding additional
就是
players
大秘
to it as well.
对对对对对对，他这样讲起来，他就是大秘的意思
We。had a lot of fun testing this, especially in parties, because parties can then start dividing and conquering what you need to do in order to get that high score. And so
然
we
后
expect
组队的分数是另外，它会有一个组队的排行榜跟一个单人排行榜。
Parties got to play with friends there for that. And
然后他
so
说
I know with leaderboards, when you're looking at leaderboards, like I think we actually have
世界一
an
吗？
image of the leaderboards here, just like a quick throw up here. But you can see based off of how leaderboards are, there is
可以看到就是有分成5个职业嘛，然后还有分成2人、3人跟4人的排行榜分开
the
的。
ability of actually being able to filter by class, so you can see where you are.
原本的挑战地层是打大秘吗？
does have a unique
我忘记了，太久没玩了，
and,
好像是哦，
That's those first 5 icons you see right there.
好像是哦，我已经忘记了。
Classes if you're playing solo. And that was really important to us because we were talking about that.
大秘没有捡钥匙啊，大秘
to make
是
sure that, you know, the
层数优先嘛。
We understand that, you
大
know,
秘的排行榜是
for
层数优先嘛，
example,
然后再来是
probably
时间
shouldn't be
嘛，
compared to,
然后
you know, a rogue or something like that.
它这边
And so,
不一样的地方
we
是
allow each class,
大家都是100
to
层，
compete
但是就是分数不一样。
And
你有
then
一个
there are
方
also
向，
ladders
你可以
for
去
each of the
开
different
角落的
classes,
箱子
because
捡钥
obviously
匙去增加分数。
four-person party probably is going to be able to cover more ground than a 2-person party. And so that
哦，对对对对对对对，挑战地层是固定的装备跟技能嘛，然后去拼时间，对对对，好像也是这样，确实。然后这边是用你原本的 build， 所以
Exactly.
理论上暗黑3的反而比较吃技术吧，比较吃你的理解跟技术跟一点点运气。这里
Which is great to see. Like we had the option of being.
刷分不是问题吧？你可以刷分，对方也可以刷分。哦，开挂哦，开挂的话要他可以开啊，就是因为它是每周就更新的东西，就算他真的找到外挂或是 bug， 就或是一些其他东西，暴风雪对外挂还蛮那个的啦，惩罚还蛮严重的啦，就看你要不要做这件事情而已。毕竟是花钱的游戏。
Everyone, or maybe just everyone on Xbox, or maybe just your friends, or maybe just people in your clan, which is really cool to see. And of course, with leaderboards and tackling leaderboards, as you mentioned, it is a separate dungeon. There are kind of rewards associated with leaderboards.
那它会有一些奖励。
Be straight up here, though. The ultimate reward of a leaderboard is glory and bragging rights.
Exactly.
And so
奖励就是荣耀。
only the top 1,000 players during a week are going to be able to get on the leaderboards.
你还要先
It's going to be a pretty big accomplishment, but we got to do a little bit better than that. And so not only do we have the weekly leaderboards, we have the Hall of the Ancients, which is the top 10 players from every ladder each week get written to the Hall of the Ancients. Now, unlike
你还有个名人堂，
the Hall of the Ancients don't reset.
你每
And so that
个
is a permanent record.
礼拜的，他说前10个吗？我刚有听错吗？每个职业的前10人会进入一个永久的名人堂，这个名人堂会是一个永久记录这样子。
Even if you come back like in a later season or something, you can always go like, trust me, I know what I'm doing.
它会是一个永久记录名人堂，你想拼的话，它每周的5个职业，它跟拼前10人我没有听得很清楚。
Hit the Hall of the Ancients, but they hit another threshold on the leaderboards. And we've also introduced another type of reward called seals. Now, I like to think of myself like I could compete, but I know better than that. I am never going to be ranking on those leaderboards ever. And so the seals are meant for players, frankly, like me.
就是还有另外一个模式，就是叫做 seal。
Not ready for the leaderboards yet. And so
对，每个职业的每个礼拜的前10。
let me describe it this way. So we've got
他现在
that
讲
ladder we were describing, right?
就是
And each rung of that ladder is going to have a seal associated with it. And so as you get better and better each week for that gauntlet, you're going to be able to earn seals and start ranking up in terms of the seals that you have. And it's going to go from kind of, I believe it's called Seal of the Blooded, which is the baseline, all the way up to Seal of the Worthy. And once you hit Seal of the Worthy, now you're ready, according to the game, to be able to compete in the leaderboard. So for myself, I'm probably just going to be trying to get Seal of the Worthy.
他这边讲说，就是你在打进排行榜之前，排行榜之前，他会有另外一个阶级要打，在那之前，你在每个阶级会有额外的奖励。现在是没有分伺服器的，现在是全球就是一个伺服器。全球是一个伺服器，所以理论上不知道它要怎么算。然后你在能够打进 leaderboard 之前，你还要先打过一些阶级。不确定他没有讲说你是可以一开始就选择你要打排行榜，还是要去拿那个奖励，他没有讲。总之就是，如果你不想拿排行榜，你只是想要拿奖励，你是像我这样的闲鱼玩家，就是你可以选择去打那个 seal。的那个阶级，从那个慢慢往上打这样子。
Players can we'll hear more news about when Gauntlet actually hits really soon. We'll have information on that and we'll be sharing that with players. But thank you guys for.
我记得这好像在蓝帖好像已经有翻译比较完整的东西，可以去看一下它有没有写的比较完整。他这边讲的没有很清楚。
And there is a new battle pass. There's a lot of.
然后有新的旅程、新的体验，有新的 Battle Pass。
Season journey and some optimizations that we've kind of made to make it a little bit more friendly, a little bit better for players specifically. I know one big thing that we ended up hitting on specifically.
这就是这个赛季旅程的部分。
For instance, like the one of the components for season journey last season was like, hey, you need to kill 10 people in PvP, which made it a little difficult for some people, and we even saw that in some of our data from players. We're
looking over the data, we're listening to your feedback, and
他们这是修正的赛季旅程，把一些
popular, and so
可能比较困难达成的，他们这边举例的就是像 PVP 杀10个人这样，这种目标从赛季旅程拔掉，他们要去修改这些目标。不太确定他那个每个职业每个礼拜10人到底是怎么算的。
One big thing is like some of the rewards associated with season journey. We kind of amped them up a little bit.
No, it's super important for us to make sure that season is rewarded.
感谢麦大家的订阅。
It's one of the backbones of our season, and if folks feel as if they're not compelled to, go in and participate, then that's a miss for us. So, we went back and really took a close look at the rewards and amped them up in a couple of key ways.
哦，真的假的啦？
The first way we amped them up is we made sure that it was a good vehicle for earning some of those governing stones and tuning stones we talked about. And so you actually get an advanced look for some of those governing and tuning stones if you play the season journey. And so you'll get the drops a little bit sooner, and that'll give you a little more of a leg up with speccing out your Seneschal. The other thing we did is we looked at those later chapters, Champion and Slayer and Destroyer. And we said, wow, those still don't feel rewarding enough. I mean, we're asking players to do a lot there. We're asking them to go into the boss ladder, defeat bosses, really invest a lot of time. So we wanted to make sure those rewards felt meaty. And so we added a number of ancestral legendaries there, including some that are 925 eye power.
Nice.
So hopefully that will be something that folks will really enjoy. and get more folks.
他基本上这边这两段讲的就是他们承认了之前设计上的错误、设计上的失误。他们首先他们承认了错误，这是他们几乎是第一次当面讲这件事情，所以我很惊讶。然后所以检讨了一些设定，包含打世界网什么那些东西。然后还有一些就是
level up to chapter 3 of the season journey.
很奇怪的一些 journey 的 object 的一些目标，他就把它给砍掉。
Have been iterating on seasons and going from season to season, so it's been super great. Another big thing that's coming with at least
我有点忘记了，他们后来搞出那个之后我就忘记了。
Cosmetic that I think a lot of players have been looking forward to. First, actually, let's actually jump into all this. Actually, can you throw that graphic back up? There we go. So there a lot new cosmetics coming. One big thing I know that was really popular with season 2 was the town portal skins.
Love those town portals.
Everyone is rolling with the blood portal. I am not rolling with the blood portal. I'm like the one person that's rolling with like
其实这次的 season pass 的东西
like shout out to those people. Your
premium 的东西，
but there are
它还蛮对我的口味的，但是这季我真的在考虑要不要花钱。承认错误坏事。不是他们这一季，他这次让我很惊讶。我第二季真的没什么印象。没关系，打到就算了。
Emblems are kind of like on your character title or on your character on the character bar.
然后这次有新的这个东西了，就是你的名片。大家还记得名片可以自定那个图案吗？目前好像只有3个还是4个可以选吧。目前好像只有3个，然后这是多了这一个。
You will get 2 new emblems per your adventures in the season journey.
你有多2个可以选择。
The battle pass.
Awesome. So yeah, we're adding in emblems. I know that's something that people were asking about because we've always had the 3 at launch.
大家还记得有名片吗？
This now gives you the opportunity of actually collecting additional emblems in season 3, and of course, season blessings are also getting adjusted for the new season because.
然后这次的
of course they were
这个语境
catered towards season of blood.
这个语境，这个蓝帖上有啦，
of course,
蓝帖上有
updated for season 3, including items that affect like stones, for instance, specifically.
名片我开始很认真的在
season blessings will be getting
在选的是，他们没有什么东西可以选，但是至少有选择。
I know that.
但是它是绑在付费的里面，它有几个是绑在付费的里
Something I
面。
mentioned in the beginning, which is the boss ladder items, that is most definitely coming back for season 3, so players can expect to have the opportunity of being able to tackle through the boss ladder, and we actually do have some optimizations that we'll be talking about here really shortly related to being able to jump into boss ladders. So yeah, lots of stuff for season 3.
Yes.
Tons of stuff for season 3. Biggest season yet for Diablo 4. And we covered a lot. I'm looking forward to people jumping in. It begins on January 23rd, where players will be able to actually jump in and create new characters.
就说就是有很多东西，这一季有很多东西，它是一个很大的赛季，对于暗黑4来说是个很大的新赛季。
The next part of our broadcast, we're actually going to use some amazing tech.
然后接下来
First time we're doing this because we now have 2 different sets. One here in Albany, which is themed like Cathedral of Light. We're in a colder environment. It is cold outside in Albany. I'm not used to that as a California person.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that.
I landed lots of snow. But it's like Cathedral of Light, Fractured Peaks, kind of feeling. And of course, we'll be going to Irvine, where we're in like the
对啊，我也在想这些问题，一直在讲这个事情。不过大家忘记还有一个人，就是应该等下应该是要把摄影棚转给另外一边吧。
Adam Jackson，
对他现在在讲，就是那边在下雪，什么等等之类的。终于记得有这个人了，我们要来讲职业跟职业有关的东西了。哦，终于到蓝帖没讲的东西。对，这边跟平衡有关的改动。
And what players can expect, and a little bit about some of the philosophy as well of what you or what you want to actually present to the players of what they can expect going forward, especially with Gauntlet being involved. So you want to take it away?
Yeah, totally. Got lots to talk about today. So
OK， 超多的。
So I'm really going to be going over
总共
three
有
different major topics today.
3个主题。
What's coming in for season 3 and beyond.
新的
So the first
职
one
业
is
更
I think
新
what everybody expects. We have some new class updates coming. A little bit of a caveat
它
here,
的
though.
蓝
I'm
帖
not
即
going to
将
go
会
over
上市。
every single note or every single update, but I am going to give you kind of a high level of what's coming for every class. But you'll definitely find out some more stuff when you look into the patch notes and see other things we're doing. And patch notes are going to be coming out very soon, like tomorrow.
就是明天就会上线这个新的一些职业的更新。
We'll give you a preview today, but you'll see the full patch notes.
等一下就会看到一些 preview。
Correct. So it'll be a preview, but you'll still get an idea of kind of what we're thinking and
再
what
来
we're
是
doing. Next, I want to do a brief
How
explanation
we
of kind of how we
currently
currently
view
view class
balance.
balance. The game's
这边
gone
会
through a lot,
解
we've
释
been out for a little
他们
while.
到底
We'll
是
have the
怎么
gauntlet
样
coming.
去看待现在的
So,
职
a lot
业
of
平衡
changes
这件
coming
事
in,
情
we're。going to be adapting to it.
然
And then the last
后
thing is kind of a roadmap for our plans for seasonal updates going forward.
再来就是未来展望，第3点就是未来展望，它的路线图，关于整个它未来的职业的跟动的路线图。然后现在野蛮人的部分，在冲锋上有一些改动。
You need a bunch of different legendaries and other effects to make it really kind of sing and be powerful.
现
We're going to be
在
moving a
的
lot of power to the baseline skill from legendaries and other effects. It's going to do a lot more damage now than it did before. We might be insane, but I think it's really cool, and so we're going to do it.
现
But
在
you can see here
的
kind of season 2 what the damage numbers look like.
charge 总之就是把它改的比较强很多啦。它有些改动，它刚我没有看懂，它是从它应该是把基础值往上拉吧？是不是把基础值往上拉？把特效基础值往上拉而已。
We're also doing a lot of buffs to key passives, such as walking arsenal.
还有很多的关键被动也被改强了，野蛮人的
with the one that most people pick.
野蛮人的关键被
And then
动。
also we're just a lot of shouts. We got a lot of feedback that players don't really like feeling kind of mandatory that they put all the different shouts on their bar. I played a barbarian last season. I know how it feels. So we're trying to kind of walk this line where we want it to be fun and you can put all the shouts on your bar, but it's not required and you kind of feel like there's good reasons not to. So we've done some changes there. And, if I were a betting man, I'd say I'd put my money into, charge and maybe some key passives as far as things that I think you'll be happy to see. So I think you'll be kind of happy with our changes there.
Adam,
就是
whenever we have
你
you on, we have to talk about class.
你可以不用带那么多吼叫的技能在你的技能列里面的啦。它等于是它有改动一些技能，把这些技能改得比较强，这样子。总之就是它有去审视3吼、2吼的野蛮人的设计。好，再来看法师的部分。
So just baseline lightning spear when it crits enemies will now make them vulnerable.
法师我不熟法师有没有大大可以来补充一下？就是
we also have
闪电毛的部分，
that kind of open up or make some things stronger.
现在会造成敌人易伤，然后有一些 buff， 有一些传奇的节点，还有给他一点额外的 buff， 增强了传奇节点。 然后 mental build， getting some update， 陨石相关的陨石相关的 build， 它是被改强了，然后它会给你看他们全新的独特，有一个全新的独特跟这个有关。
And next we've got the rogue.
然后侠盗的部分，他们通常讲的很概述的话，代表他们改了很多东西。
In particular, we're targeting range builds to make them more viable and fun.
我终于把远程侠盗、攻侠盗改的比较有趣了。怎么改没有讲，但是它有跟动了一些独特装，包含风之力，包含 Sky Hunter， 包含异构后鹰角弓，这些独特装都被改的比较有效了，比较有趣了。所以我们在第2赛季新练的远程侠盗，终于在第3赛季。 可能有搞头了，对他说他把它改得比较有趣，能不能玩不知道。在登陆1的部分，他让这些灵魂恩者变得比较有用。数值上的改动，他就说可以买攻侠盗的股票啦。 再把灵魂恩者的一些东西改的比较有用一点点。
Quite a few upgrades. We got a new legendary coming in for rabies. That's pretty neat. And then we also have a buff to enhance rabies. So for all of you that love spreading your poisons among enemies, you're gonna be a little bit happy in season 3. So here again,
然后那个撕咬的部分，它也是被改强了，然后有新的技能组。他目前讲的其实是有讲到重点啦，就是有一些东西是确实都是之前没有用的。
Yeah,
它一直都是没有用的东西，一直都是没有用的。
show these uniques, I think people are gonna probably cater their builds
的职业或是比较弱的职业，它确实有点到重点，但是怎么改的话不太确定。没错，光显变对那个比较弱的职业。然后鲜血巨魔以及钢铁巨魔的部分，现在它在某些给予伤害的，在小范围给予伤害的方式，它会跟古巨魔一样的状态。我没关死灵法师，这个我不懂差在哪里，这个改动我不懂差在哪里。有没有死灵法师大大可以帮我补充一下？
And then quality of life change coming is that Bone Prison, friendly players and your minions can now move through them. You know, we've seen some situations. I know I've played it.
你的友军还有你的小兵现在不会被你的古牢给关起来了，以前是会关的，我不知道哎。以前古牢会关到自己人，现在不会了。大家改动了一些机制的部分。
And then we got a lot of Bone Spirit upgrades, including a redesign of one of the aspects, which is the aspect of Swelling Curse. I think Bone Spirit players are going to be really happy.
所以现在帮你把之前被砍了一刀的古法，现在帮你加回去了，换个方式帮你加回去。
And the gameplay there was you want to be kind of far away from your enemy and then let it slowly creep towards them. It would do more damage.
你每
but it turns out
多2点灵能
kind of shotgun it and try and get next to enemies.
会增加灵能，这等于就是。
So now we changed it where this legendary gives you everything about
不能关是 nerf
哦，
真的假的？不能关是 nerf， 是这种事情啊。
And then when you hit enemies, your max essence is temporarily increased, which means more damage on Bone Spirit. So this really just kind of gives you everything that you want.
这个有点像是把之前砍的那一刀补回去而已啊。
And so here again, we got some buffs coming to Bone Spirit and
不能害人，没有讲到 AI 的部分，目前没有讲到。 它改动了很多次了，但是看起来应该还是不满意，对吧
？Next, let's go over the couple new uniques. So the first one is that meteor one I talked about. So this unique is the Starfall Coordinate. It basically
卡了一下，这个是法师的新的 unique 新的独特，你的。 陨石会触发其他的技能。哦，哎，感觉很有趣哎。它会有。太快了，没关系，大家都看蓝帖就好。然后这是狼的新的手套，跟 Lucky Stone 有关的。
And then also when your lightning bolts crit, an additional lightning bolt will come down and do more damage.
Oh,
and that additional lightning bolt also makes still a lightning storm lightning bolt. So you get all of your synergies with all of your other effects. So basically it turns into
之前这个技能基本上是垃圾啦，现在就它会有一个额外的成长，它是要引导的，然后引导的之后会有一个层数越来越大，然后现在多了一个额外的层数。
Next, now that we're done with the class,
闪电本来就有电能弹，闪电本来就有电能弹。虽然你目前没有讲怎么调，目前只讲说有这些东西。
So one of the things that we've been talking about a lot on the team is kind of thinking about how should we be updating the game when it comes to buffing and nerfing classes and builds.
这边就是讲到了第二个大主题，他们怎么去审视现在职业的平衡性。那这边讲了，他到底要。他们现在到底是以什么样的标准去看他到底要 nerf 还是 buff？ 然后他们有2个主要的指标，两个指标啦。那他们都希望，他们相信玩家希望让游戏变得比较有趣。那他们猜测，他们相信。 玩家确实想要开发一些打法，而且它是有强度的打法，而且它是有趣的，就是他认为玩家想要做这件事情。
But then on the flip side, here we also believe that players want the meta to refresh so that the same things aren't obviously the best choices forever, right? Looking back at Season 2, easy thing to point to
但
is
是他
Ball
也
Lightning, right?
那么也
You know, Ball Lightning
认为玩家也会希望有一些就是以前可以玩的 build， 以前是强力的 build， 他们可以持续的玩下去这样。
But we believe that, you know, if we just kept things like Ball Lightning or Hoda Barb or these things that are really powerful for many seasons over and over, not only
像他们有举例的就是整个球状闪电的法师，他们应该是不会让它存在在非常多的赛季存在这样子的打法，这样子。
And so kind of this dichotomy of these two competing factors where
就是一个是守旧，一个是开发新打法，他们现在这两个指标、这两个要素在互相的在斟酌嘛，应该这样讲嘛。然后配合了玩家的回馈，他们现在要做出决定。所以在这个情况下，有一些重大的改变，还有一些 bug 的修正或是 nerf， 你可以预期到会看到的这些东西，像是电法基本上就被砍下来了嘛。电法本身是伤害过高的状态嘛，再来是侠盗没有那个了，提包特之治的侠盗没了，哭哭，你的连击点数没了，然后你的近战侠的那个回旋刀刃的那个基本上拜拜。连击点数侠盗拜拜。
where you know you can kind of apply
那个是什么东西啊？
some effect and then
什
something
么
else
野兽
damage based on the dot or some dealing damage on something else and then that damage double dips and then just goes into crazy town really quick. So we're nipping that in the bud.
什么
For the barbarian
野蛮人的那个什么 Hammer of the Ancient 的先祖之锤哦，先祖之锤
always being applied whether or not you
还是可以玩
and we're cleaning that up. So basically everybody would always take the other upgrade and then
哦，所以不行，先祖之锤也拜拜，
overpower this is
先祖之锤也拜拜，然后压制太强了，
general if you remember
压制 is too strong， 在常态情况下太强，
overpower, you know, nobody was really
所以压制拜拜。靠北啊！
It's a little bit too strong right now, and so it's just getting toned down.
啊，那个很强哦，我不知道哎。
And now next
那
I
个
want to talk
毒群藤蔓那个很强吗？
kind of, you know,
我真的不知道。
how we think about how often we should update the day.
那个有强到需要被动刀吗？跟其他几个强度比起来。
Conclusions we came to, and we're going to be doing. So right now our plan is to update the game twice per season when it comes.
然后他们就说每一个
really just class updates.
未来展望上，每一个
Launch of a season where you're going to
季度、每一个赛季，他们希望
is kind of expected to shift a little more.
就是在赛季开始之前会有一次 update， 会有一次更新，以及在赛季中会有一次更新，这样子。
So you'll get a little bit smaller of an update
哦，
there.
是哦。
Still something that'll
后来就完全没有关注了。
detail what you can expect from these.
后来在开心魔
So
猎
first
人
let's talk about season launch and what you can expect.
那 season launch
when it comes to classes and system
开季的时候，
balance. So the first thing is we're going to be giving you some new content. You can count on this. We're going to be giving you
真的。
legendaries and uniques that are added to the game.
所以未来上你就可以预计每一季开季的时候，它都一定会有全新的传奇威能，也会有全新的独特。
Some amount of new legendaries and some amount of new uniques that'll give you new toys to play with. Next, there are balance updates. We'll be doing
通用的也会有，但是职业上一定会有一些新的职业。
you know, some more in-depth things where we change around.
再来会有所谓的 balance， 会有所谓的平衡以及
Again, the amount
设计上的更
here,
新
it。kind of depends on the needs of the game at the time and how much other stuff that we're doing. But as a general idea, just so you can know what to expect, we plan to do many buffs to things that are underperforming, a few nerfs to the things that are really overperforming, and then bug fixes, which can honestly be both buffs or nerfs.
然后再来就是他们会在每一个赛季的开
And
始
then we also plan to do other game updates. You know, our team isn't really only just doing classes.
他们强调的是会有许多的强化，还有一些些的弱化，再来就是修 bug 的部分，然后还有会调整一下一些怪物啊，一些掉宝率啊，还有一些系统上的一些东西。哦，得的那个门槛很高，是不是？官方帮你克制。
up the game and change how players fundamentally interact with things. An example of some things here, or a couple things that we did in season 2. We updated the resistance math and combat math to the game, and that was kind of
像他们的第二季改了一下，就是抗性的那些伤害的设定。
But we also do support for other things that might not seem so obvious, like content like Abattoir of Zir, where we have to go and look at the monsters, we have to look at the scaling.
然后还有像是他们举例，就是像是屠宰场那样子的东西，他们之后应该是不会每季都出现了。他们现在在讲之后应该不会每季出现，所以不要太担心。但至少不会在开季时出现。再就是赛季中的这个更动，赛季中这个补丁。
One of the nice things about a seasonal kind of model for a game is that we can experiment with things and then bring back the things that work. So an example of where we did this
像就是像之前的在赛季2的中间，他把恶意魔的魔星以那个恶意魔的戒指的形式回来，所以每个赛季中可以预期他至少会把前一季的东西拿回来，但是会前几季不知道。对。然后它不一定会是传奇的，它有可能是独特。对，但是而且至少会每个职业有一个，至少每个职业都会有一个回归的东西。那 this can be from all designer。哦，它有可能，比如说第3赛季有可能会回归恶意魔的东西，它有可能会回归2个。第2赛季都会回归，有可能只回归第1赛季，它不是只会回归第2赛季。什么东西掉什么不知道。之前他也不是只有打杜特尔，他只是打都瑞尔高几率掉落，他其实打一般的地层是会掉的，只是几率低到几乎不会掉。它是高几率掉落。再来还有一些平衡跟动，所以他这一次他已经先跟你打预防针了，就是我们会在赛季中进行平衡跟动。他们不会像当初第2季说死，而且他还会修 bug。所以假设赛季3会有像是电球法那样子的东西，或是像是那个22颗、23颗连击点数的侠盗那种东西，他就不会活到赛季尾。他们现在已经给打预防针了，就是这个意思。对，你们在开始 season 的时候，不会过一天。他们的意思是说，这个东西会在赛季中改。对，这次他们有先说了。对，这个他有讲到不会是 Hafiz， 不会是 Hafiz。但是没有讲到谁死啦，他是说就是在更新的那个东西的时候会一起改动啦。基本上你有 bug 还是可以爽半个赛季啊。对，不要太担心。像是就是你看你在第2季的时候先主锤过太爽，但是你爽了半个赛季之后，你会在赛季中被改动。意思就是说你找到 bug， 你还是可以玩半个赛季爽半个赛季。玩得很开心，暗改。不会吧？我猜他们不敢呐。我猜他们不敢呐。像这个就是古法嘛，古法第1季太强的，他们这样就已经强调说他们会在赛季中动了，所以像是连击点数那样子很明显的 bug， 就是它会让你爽到赛季中，然后之后就玩不到，但是你还是可以开心的玩 bug 玩个半赛季这样。他们的意思是这样子哦啊，如果到时候真的暗改了，不干我的事哦，不要来找我哦。
Or that they were able to keep it as high as they were able to. And those were really just oversights on our part. So then in Season 2, we nerfed this by 50%, a whopping 50%. And I still think this is probably one of the strongest key passives in the game. That's how good it was. It's really good. But, it still keeps all the gameplay that it had before. So what if this exists?
卖的就是中间啊。
Well, here, this would kind of be more of a question mark for us. We may fix it in the mid-season patch. We would definitely fix it at the start of next season. But technically, this isn't a bug. It's just something that
他们的意思就是说他们会有2次更动啊，他们就是说整个赛季里会有2次大更动，就真的就是这个意思，而不是说赛季中随时像他们应该也没有那个能力了。
we'd be looking at more things.
不要
like
期望他们有，
qualitative
你看他们做出来这种品质，
feedback,
不要希望他们有
and then
多余
make
的工程
them
师有能力去
better.
改这些
You know,
东
in
西
these。cases,
其实只是改内码，他们可能做不
sometimes
到
we。may be wrong, but we're gonna really try and lean on the side of not changing unless we really feel like
他们
it's.
现在分工分太细了，
So
真的就是打预防针，
again, kind of a
因为就是
recap,
怕
TLDR, first, our
怕环境
strategy
崩
for
坏吧。
players is to
他们就是他们现在就是分两个阶段啊
I， wanna let you know, particularly when it
就是
comes
分
to
两个阶段。
what's coming and really what we're thinking. And then again, at the start of the season, you can expect some new content in the form of legendaries and uniques. We'll also be getting some more.
他们很久没有这样做了，他们这次就是
design updates to
真的啦，因为他们就是光是就是讲说就是新增的那个回归的东西，就是在赛季中的时候，他们这次一直真的就是这样子，就是好啦，我不要，我不想为他们背书啊，算了，我不想讲，不想为他们背
We'll
书。
be doing a balance patch. It'll be a bit smaller. It'll be mostly buffs and then bug fixes that are both.
我又不是暴雪员工，我干嘛为他们背书？靠
Hopefully,
背。
if you know design nerds, that's what we're going to try and commit to. And so again, the reason why we're doing this is we really want you to know kind of where we're thinking, and we want to try and commit to concrete things when we can. And this is something that we feel we can commit to you as far as what.
不是，因为第二赛季在赛季前他们就讲了，他们不会在赛季整个赛季中他们不会有任何的 nerf， 所以就造成了对电球法从头爽到尾嘛，然后一些奇怪的先主锤嘛，对不对？然后那个也是侠盗连击点数，那个也是从头爽到尾。然后就是他们就说这是他们开季也会这样做，然后赛季中会再做一次这个大的，而且他们有提到 mostly buff 哦，绝大多数都是 buff， 赛季中的那一次大更动。
Make sure we do is
他
obviously
们如果
communicate often, communicate early.
诚实啦，预设官方是诚实的，而且是真诚的，就是2次，一次赛季中的更动，一次赛季前的开始的更动，就是这样。
Like better understanding within the community. If you follow version numbers of our updates, because we usually do client patches with big patches, usually mid-season patches land around the 0.3 variant of a patch if you want to go specifically in that. We do have a lot of other quality of life items that are also coming within Season 3 that we do want to get into before we jump into Q&A. And we did want to.
好啦，这边就大概讲完了，所以其他细节上的东西就只能等明天蓝帖了。
And of course, things and improvements that we've already talked about beforehand.
现在是讲一些
Diablo 4.
quality of life
I know that
update。
we mentioned in one of our prior streams.
为什么他的 PPT 上会放那么多字
Joe Shelley, our game director, actually brought up, which was Helltides. Helltides was, you know, something we learned within Season 2 and Season Blood is everyone really enjoyed Blood Harvest and Blood Harvest. 就是
他们，总之他们认为很重要的一些跟回馈上有关的更新啊。蓝铁说他刚刚说是明天，是明天就等下就好好睡觉吧。
So players will be able to actually jump into Helltide.
那这个东西是之前蓝铁上有出的东西。
To kind of reset the zone and stuff, but every.
他们这次看起来是有先放出来的啦，不用担心。
A Helltide, which is great. So it's more opportunities.
我不要再为他们背书。
And of course.
这个是昨天就放出来，前天就放出来的东西。不好意思，就是地狱浪潮现在只会有5分钟的 cooldown。 它每次只会有5分钟的休息时间，然后会持续开这样子。然后再是电脑的玩家、键鼠的玩家，如果你不是用摇杆，不是用手把遥控器的话，你可以用 W 跟 ASD 去做一个控制动作。但是看起来应该还是不能做到慢慢走这件事情。你要慢慢走，你还是要用类比摇杆去做。但是你可以用 WASD 去操作你的角色了，就是配合这一次陷阱，对，让你有一个额外的控制的机会或方法。
Drew, I know, who's on the D4 team. Shout out to Drew. I know he's watching, but and he's here in this office. But at least for WASD, it offers
说这是暗黑有史以来全新创举
which is great to see. So WASD controls are going to be in Diablo 4, and this is something we've been talking about.
Yeah. We're also really lucky it came online just as we were putting all those hazards in the dungeons.
Exactly.
So now, You know, the players have.
浪潮是1小时休息5分钟，还是55分钟休息5分钟
WASD, however you want to pronounce it, that is gonna be.
They like WASD.
他说 break to reset every hour。我猜字面上的意思是55分钟，然后休息5分钟。对，字面上的意思是持续55分钟，休息5分钟。
So really happy to see it, and we're happy.
他说 every hour 他会有一个5分钟的 break to rest。对。
Once they jump into season 3, and then of course we have a new respec mode coming to the skill trees.
Yes.
You know, this is. Respecing on skill trees has always been a little difficult, and now
然后再是一个
being able to do so.
技能树，它在
item that a lot of players have been
重点的时候好像可以
hand in hand with the opportunity.
它一样是整点刷新啊，它只是不是整点结束而已。
As opposed to doing it one by one that we had before.
整点刷新没了，不知道它如果是半到半的话，还是会有整点刷新啊。不知道它这跟宝箱综合的机制，对，还有这个问题在。它那个技能树的那个，它会有一个额外的，让你可以预览，确定好你要哪些点了，然后哪些重点之后再一次花钱。第3点是这个意思。然后
economy or ecosphere with season, especially since season 2. And for console users, like trading gold has been very difficult. It's been slow.
以前的浪潮是1个半小时嘛。
You could be there for quite a while trying to trade a significant amount of gold. And so the gold trading UI has been updated for console users, so they'll be able to actually trade gold without having to maybe spend 5 to 10 minutes doing so in one trade. So I know that is a big thing that players have been asking for, so we're happy that's actually being included.
他说这个换钱
And then this one is
换钱的 UI
also
update， 我这边没有听懂他在讲什么。 刚刚讲话讲太多了。
A prior campfire chat, which was higher item scaling in World Tier 4. I think he used a really good example.
再就是又开放了
bosses was kind of like, hey, you get 925.
不平等级往上开了。
And at times
在世界视又继续往上开。
way of doing
最高
it didn't feel very rewarding in other
不是925
types of activities such as like nightmare dungeons, for example. So higher item scaling in World Tier 4 is actually coming into Season 3 and going forward for Diablo 4. So even when you're doing like higher nightmare dungeons, you're going to have way more opportunities of actually obtaining
就是你现在在世界4，在 Season 3第3季的时候，世界4你可以拿到更高物品等级的装备了。
other types of activities beforehand. So making sure that, you know, there's more options available as opposed to just kind of pigeonholing yourself into maybe timed world bosses and stuff like that from that end. And then this one is a point of feedback that we've gotten from a lot of players. And this is something that, you know, we kind of optimized within Season 2 last year, things like the living.
对，95已经不是最高了。
Feedback was really big.
然后再来是为什么会改这个啊？他们认为就是之前的那5只网里面有一只那个冰中的野兽啊的那一个。 召唤道具太难拿了，所以它会增加拿到那个东西的机会，比较容易拿到那个召唤那只冰之，就是你要开个地层去打的那一只冰之野兽的那只网。对，95不是最高的了，但是理论上也是改一点点数字而已吧。就本来每季赛季就要重打了嘛。
The items that even Adam Jackson was talking about earlier. Now we come to the part where I always mess up names, but actually before we do that, I'm breaking order. Our wonderful production group here is going to be like, "What's wrong with you, Adam?" One thing I did want to call out is we actually have a new promo for Twitch starting with Season 3, and that is our Support a Streamer promo. We had the Support a Streamer for Season 1. We have it again for Season 2. It is a new amount that players can actually earn. This time it's different. Before we only had a select group of streamers. I think it was like around like 2,000 streamers that signed up and opted in. Now it's for any streamer that streams Diablo 4. Thank you, Twitch, for making the engineering updates to allow for it to be just across the whole entire category. Any streamer that is streaming Diablo 4, if you're a viewer and you happen to be watching them, you can either purchase a sub from them or gift a sub to a total of 2. So it could be 1 gifted, 1 purchase, or 2 gifted.
就是你在看
as well. You just need to make sure
总之就是你
that
他
account
在
is
看
with your Twitch account, and
你
you
用
are watching a participating Diablo 4 streamer. It'll notice
你用你的
on your
Twitch
channel,
account 或是你的 YouTube account 在看他们
your
官
user
方的
account.
直
So
播的
that is
话，
coming.
可以送
There'll
那
be
只
a
马，
vlog later today
然后
about that
挂网的
specific,
就是那个
Twitch supporter streamer
钓宝
program that's
钓宝的那个，
with the
那个
start
基本上只有
January 23rd. So
Twitch 才有啦，所以到时候
for quite a while, like
对，它就是送马送造型。
we'll be able to kind of take part in that from their end. But now our favorite part, which is the Q&A. And we're actually going to be going back and forth between
他这次是
Irvine and
给
Kieran all
streamer
day
的
because Adam
所以
Jackson
应该
of course
也是
is
挂
still
台
with
他说
us,
是给
to answer any specific
看
questions related to class
看
and
直
class
播组
balance
跟
that
看直播的人的，
we
所以应该也是
have.
挂
I know
台
one
的状态。
question that as we queue up
OK， 再来就是最后的
our side and have my
垃圾时间
feed right here. We'll attempt
大家最爱的
not
垃圾时间
names.
Q&A，
I will.
画大饼
I will.
时间。
Spoilers. But one question that we do have is how have the team's thoughts changed in regards to balance since Diablo 4's release? This is a question for Mr. Adam Jackson in Irvine. If you could help us with that answer.
Yeah. Let me think. It's a deep question, but I think
我刚没看他问题是什么。
so. I guess
对
we'll
不起，我
start
刚
with
晃神了一
there's
下
like。a long history of balance, right? I think there's actually a very good story, and we could start even before launch and going into launch and how we thought about things. But I think we'll start with like season 1 and the transition from kind of the launch version of the game into our first season, right? Obviously, when we launched the game, we had some pretty benign ideals, I think, of, you know, hey, we want all the classes to be within a certain power range of each other, and everything should be viable for everyone, and, you know, basically everything feels good, and there's a lot of different ways to play, right? And then one of the issues that we ran into this season 1 that I think is interesting to talk about is we realized that in our quest to make items and item stats really fun and powerful and interesting, we had over budgeted on quite a few of them. And I think just in the interest of time, I'll pick on cooldown reduction. It's a very scary stat to me and the team. So, you know, we realized in the launch version game, the cooldown reduction was too high, right? And so players are basically able to solve cooldown reduction, using that with air quotes,
他应该是
and
问
get to a point where
职
they
业
have
平衡
very
相关的
low,
东西
if
吧，
any,
刚没有看到
cooldowns on a
问
lot of
题
their。skills. And this was true for many stats, not just cooldown reduction.
这边他就
But one of the
举例
problems
就是
that
说，他
we
们觉
knew was going
得
to come up that was a
CDR 太强
kind of future us problem, but really almost immediately us problem, is that if we let players solve these things, whether it's, you know, defensive stats, cooldown reduction, resource, whatever it may be, then, and we let them solve it only in gear, then we're going to get to a state where we can't give exciting things to you anymore that you're going to be really happy about and that will feel impactful because you just got it all in gear, right? And while gear does need to be cool and interesting, if you completely solve these things, I can't give you a legendary power, or I can't give you something late game that really buffs and changes your build in a meaningful way if you got it from just one source. And so then we launched season 1 and we're like, okay, you know, we're going to kind of eat our vegetables here, and we're going to preserve the long-term health of the game, but we're going to do these very necessary nerfs, and there were quite a few, right? And even at the time we did this, we knew, you know, we tried to mix in a bunch of buffs and, you know, try and make it feel good, but we just didn't hit the mark, right? We kind of failed in that endeavor. We did
他的说法就是说，这些装备啊，
cost of player fun and player sentiment. And so you went from, you know, the beginning preseason to season 1, and the game overall just got quite a bit less fun because you were just less powerful and you weren't compensated enough from the player point of view. And so we kind of learned a lesson there of like we need to be a little bit more thoughtful and careful of when we roll out these things and how we roll them out, and then also how we communicate it, right? Because we didn't really.
他说装备绑那些磁条线车太强，所以他们就他举例的东西有点怪，因为传奇装备应该是跟那些装备一样的，它针对的应该是指独特。
We were kind of a little worried because, you know, we had to kind of thread this needle of we also were nerfing player power because we changed a lot of multiplicative synergies to the additive. But we wanted to do it in a way where you felt more powerful and it felt more fun and fair. So we had to do a lot of more work on the monster side.
然后这边就是他们考虑了很多事情，它不能让你只单纯的，他们希望用一些特效类的东西去让你让整个 build 或是整个游戏的强度往上去推进。他没有讲到对的东西，他现在是讲说他的跟动方向的方法。
things like, you know, Ball Lightning, Hoda Barb, the Druid, Poison Druid, Rogue combo, like many classes had just something that was kind of crazy. And we just let it go. But even now, towards the end of season 2, we're seeing that, some people are starting to be a little upset, like, hey, these same builds are just killing everything. And if I want to do the really hard content, I have to be one of these things because that's the only thing that works. And obviously, we don't want that to be the future of the game forever.
然后他们在讲，经过 Season 1的那样子的状态，他们做一些更动之后，到了 Season 2了之后，他们会有一些以前的玩法到 Season 2还是可以打的状态，他们不希望见到这样子的状态延续下去。
But then also how we update the game matters as well. Of like, hey, are we okay with, 1 or 2 things being really strong for a while, or what is the range that something can be too strong before we consider it a problem? That's another subject that maybe I like to go into in the future, but or.
然后再来就是他们
I think that kind of answers the question. It's already a little bit long-winded, so
讲的有点乱啦。总之就是，我觉得他们的思考方式真的。
Going back to Adam, but I know
大家能够做一样的事情的话，这样不是一个好的状态。每个职业应该要有每个职业能够做到不同的事情，才是比较有趣的事情。不是他的动作要素要变强。那他刚才意思就是说，他有点想要针对。
Right, so you were able to.
刚刚那个基本上没有讲什么内容，他就是在讲他们现在经过1跟2赛季之后学习到一些事情，然后后来不要期望能够让以前能够暴打的打法之后可以再延续下去，大概就是这样子。
Where if you leave the dungeon, you will lose the buff. So we're trying to avoid some cases where players might try to cheat their way to the end.
Yeah.
But overall, we're trying to be as supportive as possible for group play.
Awesome. Makes sense. And then I know this is a question back for Adam. A popular question regarding minion builds. And plans for minion builds. I know.
召唤物讲到了。召唤物的部分，大家关注的。
Plans for like maybe necromancer or druid minion build specifically.
小兵的流派。
Yeah, I definitely don't get asked this all the time. So, let me think.
他现在连问题都不秀出来了。
So we know the feedback that people want minion builds to be kind of more impactful, and these are now I'm kind of going into my opinion, but I think a lot of that feedback comes from a combination of, they don't feel necessarily maybe as powerful as other builds, which we can and we do, and if you notice in our past patches,
社群上有很多玩家希望，就是召唤流、小兵流、一些小动物流更有用。
More complicated, difficult problem to solve is kind of the relationship between the player and the minion, and making the minions feel really cool and awesome, and you're investing.
但是他们有遇到一些困难，他们觉得小兵不酷，小兵不赞。
It's in my mind, and I'm not promising anything, but these are things like rethinking of how the Book of the Dead upgrades work, and that relationship between sacrificing and minion upgrades, and really trying to make them do more visually, I think, cool and awesome things, and maybe more reacting to you. And so you feel like they're
他不保证任何事情，但是现在他在追求
the direction that we think. We don't have anything to announce right now as far as that. And Druid Companions, I think,
他在追求，他们在想办法，就是让小兵跟玩家能够有一点互动性。
But I think players really just want this visceral feeling, like I've got my gain with me, and we're all going and messing with stuff.
就是我们整团过去。
So we're doing number buffs now. It is a thing that we are looking at. I don't have any promises of when, because again, this is something that I think is a little more difficult to tackle, and we have other things that we're tackling that are a little more difficult coming in the near future. But it is something that we know of, and that will definitely be coming. I just don't know when.
他们知道有这个问题在，他们希望能够让小兵不是只是单纯的被叫出来给伤害这种方式，希望有一些额外的互动。小兵不酷，新赛季基努。第3其实好像也是6个格子的。
We still wanted to make the Uber Vault rewarding, and so for the Seneschal construct. We've actually created several unique tuning stones, which
他们有些独特的控制石。
But Defeating Uber Malphus is going to be the only way to earn those.
Awesome. Yeah. So players will be able to get really powerful, unique tuning stones specifically from those.
它有一些独特的控制史跟基努是有关的。
PC Gamer did a good interview with
所以这次其实你可以视为基努就等于多2招 SA， 所以这次等于是这个赛季你有8个，你可以这样去想，这个赛季你有8个。
Actually check it out there, so people can actually see it there. Another question back for Adam. This is another big question within chat. Oh, by the way, Beefcake Monster asked that last question. I forgot names, but this one is actually asked by a lot of people, so just many names specifically.
Sure.
Snapshotting.
它太少触发性的东西了，彼此触发的有 A 触发 B， 然后的那种技能在 D 4太少。
Do we have any plans regarding snapshotting and what we might do for that?
Yeah, we do have things coming. I don't have anything to announce today. It won't be at the beginning of Season 3, but we do have fixes coming for snapshotting. We're aware of the problem. It came on a little hot at the end of Season 2, but yeah, we've talked about it. We've seen it. We kind of know the intricacies of it, and we'll be taking a look at it.
Season 2发生的一些问题，他们确实有检讨。
Do not encounter him. He is still dead. No digging up his head this time. But you will hear his voice. We have several lore books that drop throughout.
你会听到佐顿库勒还是一样死在那边，但是你可以听到他讲到一些，他是有语音的，他会讲一些话。
So that makes perfect sense. I know a question regarding the vault specifically. Is that an area that players can actually maybe potentially level up Paragon glyphs, or is that still something that is tied to Nightmare Dungeons?
So the Nightmare versions of Vault should work the same way as Nightmare Dungeons in that respect. Awesome to be able to
Awesome. Yeah, I know that a lot.
所以噩梦的宝库就跟噩梦地层一样的机制，越高层越痛，越高层血越多。
So and that was from Galley055 who asked that question specifically. And then I know a question we have from UN Tanksup. Bad, terrible, Adam. How many times can we do the gauntlet in a week?
So we have not restricted players.
挑战地层每周可以打多久？他们现在还没有任何的想法。
It's the type of content we want people to try and master, and in order to be able to do that, you've got to be able to practice, and you've got to be able to improve.
就是到时候每周开了之后，确切有多少时机可以打？
As little as you want, which is a change again from something like a Nightmare Dungeon where you need a sigil.
或者说有几次可以挑战，但是现在目前看起来是你可以一直不断的挑战，但是每周开多久不知道。那有没有可能每周只开5天不知道？有没有可能每周开7天不知道？
And you can do it as many times as you want, which is really cool. So
但是你可以无限打，它没有限制你打几次。
Because of course they change every single week, and they get to kind of like learn, and they get to kind of maybe modify.
对啊，我就在担心宝库它到底，他没有讲说有几层，他只说一样的升级机制，但是没有讲说有几层。
Some of the I lost my question now. I'm so bad at this. The itemization.
他越来会演了。
In the past, a lot of people were asking like, "Hey, is that still on track for season 4?" This one was specifically from Fermel. Yes, that is.
好像真的有人问问题一样。
We have a really massive itemization update coming specifically for that season, and we'll have more news to share as we get closer to season 4. But for right now, we don't have news to share with the community for season 3 regarding that. But it will be pretty significant, and we'll be talking about that more in a future stream here coming down the line. And then let's see, any updates regarding like some of the group finders or social features? I know that is also another big question that a lot of players.
关于团体、团队，或是像是社交面的一些更动，有没有任何的
？This is something that we addressed at BlizzCon as well. I think Tiffany answered this one where it is something that we're looking.
他说就是像之前 BlizzCon 讲到的那样，就是他们还在不断的努力中，针对于像是工会系统啊，或者是社交系统这些东西。
So players can expect to see better and more optimizations towards
那
the
我们
social
在未
features
来
and the
玩家可以
friendly
看到更
experience
多
on that end.
的这些消息。靠北，
Let's see.
真的
We
是
get more sources of Uber uniques.
空口说白话时间呢，头
For
痛。
this specific season, really the best way of grabbing Uber uniques is through the boss ladder for sure, through Uber Duriel. And there are more, you can of course find Uber uniques anytime throughout the game. It's just
请零元很
there
贵
are
的哦
higher chances through Uber Duriel, and that is still the same specifically for this season. And then of course now more opportunities to go into that fight now since we've like amped up a lot of the
对啊 ，Q&A 时间基本上就是一个
like living still from season
画大饼时间啊。
the beast nice
他们
summoning items now
没有
for season
不会讲到什么
3,
重
so
点，
players will actually
然
be
后
able to
回答的也都会是一
to,
些
Duriel
很
specifically.
笼统、很模棱两可的东西。
Let's see. I know we get a lot of questions about field of view.
基本上
players, asking like,
目前听起来啦，每一季 Q&A 问的问题都一样，而且都是老话常谈的，因为
don't have any plans.
大家都玩那么多，玩那么久，玩那么多，大家也都知道，
Hearing a lot from
他们没改东西就是没改嘛。
There's a lot of work that of course has to go.
然后他们就会一直不断的说，他们有不断的在检讨，做了很多事情。
Whenever we do have an update, we'll
这就是一个在
specifically on that end. Codex updates is another big
因为
thing
他
because people have been
因为
asking.
右边这个亚裔的这个小哥，他的
just like kind of
职业就是社群的 leader， 社群管理社群回应的
That
人，
is something that we talked about before, and that work
所以基本上就是
is
洗地时间。
and that will also be part of a future season. And it
这边我就都
update. It's something that we had
尽量
talked
不
about
翻了，因为
before
他
in
没有
previous
重点，
streams,
也没有
which
回
was,
答。
kind of helping out with inventory, making sure the
对，
those
之前有讲到，在
specific
BlizzCon 的时候有讲过要把金发放入
stored,
法典的
within
事
the
情，
character
但
or
是
cataloged within the character.
目前在蓝帖
We
跟
will
直
have
播
more,
上都没有
info
提
on
到
that
这些
actually
事
ends。up hitting soon. But there's a ton of things that are coming to D4 to help address a lot of some of this community feedback specifically on that end.
然后说这些回馈、这些社群上的这些意见，他们都会即将的在
Dragonheart
有关
will be
心
able to inspect the top players in Gauntlet and see what builds they're potentially using.
So you will be able to inspect the top players from Gauntlet. There will be a link from the leaderboard to a player's profile, and you'll be able to see what they're playing currently.
哦，然后你
We cannot
在
save a snapshot right now.
排行榜上可以看到那个玩家的完整的 build，
So yeah, if
跟
you
之
wanna
前一样，
see
跟之
kind
前
of like,
暗黑三一样。
top builds and stuff like that, you have the opportunity to, but it does, if they happen to change their build overnight or something like that, it's going to grab whatever that existing build is specifically.
但是你可以看到当下过的那个
And
人的
then,
那个 build。
I know we've gotten, or this was a question from Max
对，金华不真包包。
regarding Malthus. Do we have any plans of Malthus becoming maybe potentially an endgame boss outside of the season? Or are we planning on maybe,
他说我们现在这季要打墨菲斯，
Right,
那
so
之后的墨菲斯
every season, you know,
会不会像之前的瓦森一样回归？
You know, we
这
take a
样。
look at those elements that we really liked from a previous season to see if we can bring them forward. Certainly people on the team like fighting Malphus. Hopefully y'all enjoy fighting Malphus
所
too.
以希望大家打墨菲斯可以打得很开
If you
心
like。fighting him enough, then
那如果你喜欢
in the future, yeah, we could.
如果大家打墨菲斯打得很开心的话，那在未来他
No
就有可能回归，就有可能像瓦森一样强势回
I
归
know。we went through
大家打瓦
questions
森
here and we're
打得开心吗？
a little over beyond. We're aiming for 90 minutes. We're a little beyond. It's
Yeah.
totally fine though.
a
Really
lot of
appreciate.
stuff.
Yeah, a lot of stuff in season 3. Really appreciate everyone providing questions. And if you have additional questions, of course, make sure to ask them over social media, Reddit, forums. We're always checking those out, and of course, we'll try to
瓦
address
森
them
强势回归啊！
immediately if we can.
就
stream.
你看
We have
我
patch notes for season
德鲁伊还是要农劳乌博大瓦上，还是要去农瓦
new
森。
1.3 patch are going to be hitting tomorrow, so make sure to check Diablo4.com specifically for those patch notes. It's a big one.
真的
always a big patch note.
只能打，没错，我们没有选择，我们只能选它来打。然后我们还有很多额外的活动。
Just a couple weeks ago, D2. Repping D2 today. There we go. D2R. D2R. A lot of questions about when the next ladder will be. We'll have more news on that.
Immortal 都有一些东西。
ladder reset.
他们说现在都有很多的活动正在进行中。
As we get closer to February. Of course, DI has a ton of new updates as well. They had a big update before the holiday regarding familiars being added to the game, and they've been expanding on that. So there's a ton of stuff coming
然后
to
跟
to the Diablo universe.
假日活动
Before,
相关
even
的
earlier this month,
节日活动
we-
相关的
we talked about how we will have ray tracing and a lot of those features coming into Diablo 4 here really soon. So players should expect to see that within a future update really soon. So I'm
然后
super excited for that.
这些活动相关的，或是一些可以预期的活动，或是跟节日相关的东西，玩家们在未来都会可以预期，可以看到更多，而且看到更快的看到这些。
I'm looking forward to flying back and saying hi again, Adam. But I want to thank you guys for of course joining us on this special developer update live stream for season 3. And just a heads up for people that are watching, we our friends at Xbox are actually doing an Xbox Developer Direct that's going to be starting here really soon. So make sure to check that out on the Xbox channel on Twitch.
然后顺便帮微软爸爸宣传一下，他们现在跟 Xbox
Diablo partners on YouTube.
在
So
上了。
make sure to tune into them immediately after the stream. But thank you guys again for tuning in for the
Okay.
developer update.
那感谢今天大家的收看。最后确实，
patch notes tomorrow on Diablo4.com.
官方
And,
YT 常态性的是关留言的，他们自从上次。 他们自从上一次那2个跨性别或是性别认同非传统的生理女性的影片之后，就不敢，对，就再也不敢开了。OK， 感谢大家今天晚上的陪伴，彼此辛苦了，大家都辛苦了，大家都辛苦了。今天状态不太好，很多东西，因为他们太多很水的成分了，所以。 老实讲，我也不知道该怎么翻，因为一直在不断的水内容。原则上啊，觉得他们这次的直播准备的没有很好。那他们对啊，我自己觉得没有翻到什么东西，他们内容太水了，一直在水，我都不知道该不该讲出来。没错，他就是希望你直接去看蓝帖啦。那蓝帖的话是说是明天开始这样子，那大家辛苦了，现在时间也。 不早了，这样哦，感谢就是新加入的朋友们，也新订阅者，真的。其实当初赛季2的那次直播做的蛮好的，老实讲，赛季2那次直播做的蛮不错的。那今天这次真的是不太 OK 啦，哦，然后有点凉。那如果大家对这个游戏还是有兴趣，本频道之后还是会直播一下，或者玩一下暗黑4吧。第3赛季还是会稍微玩一下啊。有兴趣的朋友们也可以一起来参与，一起玩这样子。好，那大概就先到这里。为什么变成一个奇怪的妹子在播？我要关掉了。变成一个奇怪的妹子。好了，感谢各位的收看，本频道 TLK 散步。 我们是每周1至5晚上进行游戏直播。好，那感谢各位，今天就先这样子了。各位早点休息，晚安，拜拜。晚安，拜拜啦。好，这边有亮出来的特别几位，感谢几位 Jaja 大大，还有冰室猫、鹏鹏大大。 还有马里大大，还有其他几位，如果你不是公开订阅的话，它不会亮上来。不过也是感谢你们的订阅以及加入我频道，谢谢你，感谢。那今天就先到此为止，收工了，大家早点休息。来，来 ，Kevin 大大晚安 ，N 大大晚安，小孩大大晚安，普罗雨婷大大晚安，阿英大大晚安。明天晚上，对，明天晚上应该还是继续我的。 魔猎人的部分，我要到下礼拜三的新赛季开始之后才会回去打暗黑。OK， 大家可以好好睡觉了。明天一样是魔猎人 Iceborne 冰原的部分，继续拓荒，可怜。那如果看到这边还没有离开的，不介意的话，帮我影片按个赞支持一下，也希望大家的订阅，对，支持一下小频道，感谢各位。好，就先这样子啦，晚安啦，拜拜。